Scene script. Have you ever wondered who takes responsibility for our changing climate? Let's dive into the deep end here. Climate change isn't a new concept. It's a global phenomenon that's been in motion for decades, if not centuries. It's a result of our collective actions and decisions, a culmination of our industrial advancements and technological progress. But with every action, there's a reaction. In our case, the reaction is a warming planet, rising sea levels, and an increase in extreme weather events. These are not just predictions or theories. They're happening right now, impacting us in ways we may not even fully comprehend yet. Now, who takes responsibility for this? It's tempting to point fingers at the biggest polluters or the wealthiest nations. However, the reality is that climate change is a shared responsibility. It's a global issue that requires global solutions. Every nation, rich or poor, large or small, has a role to play. Developed nations, with their historical emissions and technological advancements, have a crucial role in leading the way. Yet, developing countries, with their growing populations and economies, also have a part to play in shaping a sustainable future. Climate change doesn't respect borders. Its impacts are felt differently across the globe. Some nations are hit harder than others. Small island nations face the existential threat of rising sea levels, while others grapple with extreme heat, floods, or droughts. Yet, no matter where we live, we all share the same planet. We all breathe the same air. We all rely on the same delicate balance of nature for our survival. That's why the fight against climate change is a shared responsibility. It's not just about reducing our carbon footprint or transitioning to renewable energy. It's about changing the way we think, the way we live, and the way we relate to our planet and each other. This shared responsibility has led to the formulation of various policies over time, aimed at mitigating the effects of climate change and adapting to a new reality. It's a complex and challenging task, but one that we must undertake together. The fight against climate change is a shared responsibility that has led to the formulation of various policies over time. The journey to combat climate change began in earnest in the 20th century. This period was a turning point for environmental policies globally, with the 1960s marking the beginning of a new era of awareness and action. During the 1960s, the world began to realize the impacts of human activities on the environment. This led to the introduction of some of the earliest climate policies. In the United States, the Clean Air Act was enacted in 1963, marking a significant move towards environmental protection. This legislation aimed at controlling air pollution on a national level, recognizing that the quality of our air is a shared responsibility. It was a powerful statement that the health of our planet and its inhabitants should be prioritized over industrial progress. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Atlantic, Europe was also beginning to take action. In 1972, the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment was held in Stockholm, Sweden. This was the first major conference on international environmental issues, and it marked the start of global awareness about the impacts of climate change. Fast forward to 1988 and the creation of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, by the United Nations. The IPCC was formed to provide policymakers with regular scientific assessments on climate change. Its reports have been instrumental in understanding the impacts of global warming and guiding international responses. These initial efforts were merely the first steps in a long journey. They laid the groundwork for more comprehensive climate policies, sparking a global conversation about the importance of sustainable living. It's important to remember that these early policies were born out of a newfound understanding of our impact on the environment. They were the world's first attempts at grappling with a problem that was just beginning to reveal its scale. So, as we look back at the birth of these climate policies, we can see how far we've come in our understanding of climate change and our efforts to combat it. However, we must also recognize how much further we have to go. These initial steps set the stage for global action against climate change, and that action is more urgent now than ever before. In 1997, the world took a major step forward in the fight against climate change. This major stride was known as the Kyoto Protocol, a landmark agreement that was the first of its kind to take a global stance against the increasing threat of climate change. Named after the Japanese city where it was adopted, the Kyoto Protocol was more than just a piece of paper. It was a collective commitment by nations across the globe to take the reins of their environmental responsibilities. The Kyoto Protocol had one primary objective: to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Scientists had already established a clear link between these gases and the rising global temperatures. The protocol's main goal was to lower these emissions by a collective 5% below the 1990 levels over the first commitment period from 2008 to 2012. But the Kyoto Protocol was more than just an ambitious goal. It was the first agreement to mandate country-by-country reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Each country involved was given a specific target to hit, based on their historical emissions and economic capability. This was a game-changer. For the first time, nations were held accountable for their environmental impact in a tangible, measurable way. The impact of the Kyoto Protocol was significant. While it wasn't perfect and not all countries met their targets, it set a precedent for international cooperation on climate change. It proved that nations could come together to tackle a global problem, setting the stage for future agreements and negotiations. Moreover, the protocol stimulated a surge in carbon markets. It introduced innovative mechanisms such as emissions trading, the Clean Development Mechanism, and joint implementation. These tools provided nations with flexible options to meet their emission reduction targets, paving the way for a greener economy. The Kyoto Protocol was a landmark, but the journey didn't stop there. The fight against climate change is ongoing, and the Kyoto Protocol was a crucial stepping stone, a beacon that guided the way towards a more sustainable future. It reminded us that together, as a global community, we can make a difference. Fast forward to 2015, the world came together again in an unprecedented move. This time it was in Paris, the City of Lights, where a landmark agreement was forged. We know it today as the Paris Agreement. This agreement was more than just a follow-up to the Kyoto Protocol. It was a global commitment to tackle climate change head-on. But what made the Paris Agreement unique? Its universal nature and ambitious goals. Unlike the Kyoto Protocol, which focused on a select group of developed countries, the Paris Agreement involved all countries, rich and poor alike. The goal? To limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. It was a bold commitment that recognized the shared responsibility of all nations. But the Paris Agreement was not just about setting targets. It also established a financial mechanism, urging developed countries to mobilize at least $100 billion annually by 2020 to assist developing countries in their climate change efforts. However, the Paris Agreement is not without its challenges. While it represents a global consensus, its implementation is based on the voluntary commitment of countries. This means that the success of the agreement depends on the willingness and ability of each nation to fulfill its pledges. There is also the issue of accountability. The agreement lacks an enforcement mechanism to ensure countries are meeting their commitments. This has led to concerns about free riders, nations that benefit from the efforts of others without making substantial contributions themselves. Despite these challenges, the Paris Agreement remains a significant milestone. It reflects a global recognition of the urgency of climate change and a commitment to take collective action. It is a testament to the power of international cooperation, a reminder that when we come together, we can achieve extraordinary things. The Paris Agreement marked a new era of global consensus and commitment to combat climate change. As we move forward, what does the future hold for climate policies? The future of climate policies is a vast, open landscape, brimming with potential. There's no doubt that we need more robust policies. As the effects of climate change become more pronounced, the need for comprehensive strategies that mitigate environmental damage and promote sustainable living becomes paramount. This is where technology steps in, playing a crucial role in the future of climate policies. Imagine a world where renewable energy sources are the norm, not the exception. Picture cities where electric vehicles outnumber those powered by fossil fuels, and smart grids manage energy consumption efficiently. The future of climate policies is intertwined with the future of technology, and harnessing the power of innovation will be key in our fight against climate change. But it's not just about big tech and government policies. It's also about the actions of individuals. Each one of us has a part to play in shaping the future of our planet. By making conscious choices like reducing waste, opting for public transport, or even planting a tree, we can all contribute to a greener future. We are at a crossroads. The decisions we make today will shape the world of tomorrow. The urgency to act is now. The future of climate policies, therefore, isn't just about drafting new laws or introducing cutting-edge tech. It's about creating a global culture of environmental responsibility. Climate policies of the future must be inclusive, catering to the needs of all nations, big or small, rich or poor. They must be forward-thinking, considering not just the immediate effects of climate change, but also its long-term impacts. In essence, the future of climate policies is a collaborative effort. It's a worldwide commitment to sustainability. It's a testament to human resilience and our ability to adapt, innovate, and overcome. The future of our planet depends on the policies we enact today, and everyone has a role to play.